ACT Party proposes new Treaty of Waitangi definitions. New definitions. And this is all before the tribunal at the moment, which they're now going to try and undermine as much as possible with the latest ability for ministers to not be called up by it. But this is really interesting. And if you listen to some of the wording of the big brains in the room, they're all basically saying this is nonsensical, isn't it? Yes, this is nonsensical. The people proposing these things don't know anything, do they? No, they don't know anything. Have a listen.
The controversial Treaty Principles Bill is now at the centre of an urgent inquiry by the Waitangi Tribunal. The ACT Party policy proposes a new definition for the Treaty of Waitangi, and there's a heated backlash. Māori Affairs correspondent Te Aniwa Hurihanganui reports.
The message in Waitangi was clear.
And you want to gut the treaty in front of all of these people? Hell no!
And it's only getting louder.
If this bill goes through, it's going to cause massive Māori unrest.
Now the Waitangi Tribunal is hearing.
It is interesting just after having that conversation last night, and we will try and open Discord, in the not too distant future. Love to hear from any of you who watched that doco and see what your thoughts are. But just thinking about that doco last night and going, what Māori can do when they want to when they really, really need and want their voices to be heard. Like ACT and the national. I think that Luxon's probably smart enough to know, holy shit, we don't want a piece of this, but they may get it anyway because they've given a guarantee that they'll go through the first reading. So you might get it anyway, Luxon. Remember, we've said it before, we'll say it again. If you open the door, you own anything that breaks, that comes through. And this is something, super something.
Their case.
We're not used to having so many people for a hearing of this nature.
Claimants and treaty experts say David Seymour's interpretation of the Māori text is alarmingly inaccurate.
This cutting and pasting exercise of the Treaty of Waitangi demeans, debases and trivialises our founding document.
And they say affords both the Crown and Pākehā more rights than the treaty promised.
Is it your opinion that whoever did this doesn't understand the language?
Certainly, without doubt.
The treaty is...
There you go. There's a bit of I draw a line in the sand. Seymour, you do not understand the language.
It's widely considered an exclusive agreement between the Crown and Māori, but ACT wants to grant chieftainship rights to all New Zealanders.
The people that are recognised in that signing are Māori.
The Ministry of Justice overseeing the bill agrees it's flawed.
We note that it's a novel interpretation of Article 2, that there's no...
Yeah, how polite is that? It's a novel interpretation. Let's just say it's you almost need to do a little like the double take. It's a bit novel, this interpretation.
Support for it in legislation, judicial interpretation or expert opinion.
Warning ministers early on about the potential backlash.
Your advice to ministers is that progressing the bill is likely to induce and cause social disruption.
The Office of Māori Crown Relations also made a major concession.
Is that text of the Treaty Principles Bill, in your opinion, as the lead policy manager for Te Arawhiti, consistent with the Crown's obligations under the Treaty of Waitangi?
No.
It's significant.
Boom. That's the Crown. That's the Crown's voice saying the new interpretation does not meet the Crown's obligations. I mean, you know.
To have that concession from a senior official from the Crown that we already knew anyway.
Yep.
The hearing is set to continue at the final day tomorrow.
We know there's a lot of...
Yeah. So lots to think about there. It's the people who are there for the Crown are saying this doesn't meet the obligations that the Crown has for the Treaty of Waitangi. The experts are saying this is not how you read the Māori version of the Māori treaty. And it's just it just lends more and more and more weight to if they try and ram something through. This is going to be, like seabed and foreshore, maybe times two. It's going to be something very different because this is the founding document.
This is something that Māori would be righteously incandescent about.
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't get to the stage of people marching or as was said at the start of that clip, unrest. But if it does, if this government keeps bulldozing this through, then I'll be marching as well.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
exactly what we're talking about. Māori won't be doing this alone.
Yeah. And remember the words of Jedi Tamaiti last night. It's about igniting something within us, yet always prioritizing peace. We mustn't succumb to chaos. That path leads to darkness. Tamaiti's words from the documentary we were talking about last night. Hikoi. So yeah, I don't want to say it'll be fascinating, like, oh, it'll be interesting as a media observer. I mean, like, it's just going to be, it's actually terrifying is what it is. If there are such a small group of people getting smaller and smaller by the day, because they're all 92, who think that this is going to do anything but I'm not even going to say tear this country in half. It's going to tear this country into like 60% sitting in one part, 30% national voters not trying to get involved, and 10% New Zealand First and ACT supporters thinking that this is a level conversation. This is not going to be one of those times where you get two experts on and give them even weighting. Remember, the format of how we say things, the format of how we set things up is going to make all the difference to this. And it's going to be, as an observer, interesting to see what the media does with this. And as a participant, Shui, I'll be there with you, mate. I'll be there with you.
Do you know what this made me think of? And you know I love a sporting analogy, Pat. I'm really good at them because of my extensive sports knowledge. Talking about how there's been waves of Māori protest and over the decades, and it builds and builds and builds. It feels like when the rugbyers, the people that do the rugby, they do the practice and they've got the scrum machine and you get everybody together and you sort of engage and you push the thing forward and then you have a little bit of a rest for a while. Yeah, it's a scrum. You've got to move the ball forward, and it's not all one big fluid movement. It's just like every now and then you just got to really get together, put your shoulders down and move it. That's what this feels like. It's like every 10 fucking years, people have to get together and do this. And the scrum's getting bigger.
Picking up on your analogy, though, it's not against a scrum machine, which would be an inanimate object to be pushed around for training. It's against another scrum, but I feel like a scrum normally has 8 people in it, 8 forwards on each side, so 16 in total. It feels like one side's got 12 and one side might have 4. You know, and the side with 12 is the side on the right side of history. So that scrum would easily win, but that team of 4, if it's the right 4 or the 4 with the access, or the 4 with the casting vote, or the 4 with enough money behind them, can still do some pretty good damage to the other bigger scrum. Could actually defeat the other bigger scrum given the right circumstances.